This year's been insane. It's been both bad and, well, really more bad, but there's also been some good sneaker releases, so in today's video we're gonna focus on those, and not so much of the bad. What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler, and today I'm counting down the top 10 best sneaker releases of 2020. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell down below if you haven't yet, and also make sure to give me a follow on Instagram and on Twitter, at Real Seth Fowler. What the hell is this? So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I have looked at other people's top 10 sneaker lists of 2020 and top sneaker lists of 2020, and to be fair, this list is gonna be relatively similar to some of those lists. However, there are some shoes that have changed around and other shoes that I felt like needed to be on the list that I really wanted to include. Now that said, I didn't base my list off of anybody else's list. I based it on my own personal opinions and the shoes that I thought were the best of 2020. And the criteria for being on this list was sort of a mix of things. One, it was honestly my own personal preference, and two, it was also the impact that each one of these shoes had on sneaker culture in 2020. So with that in mind, let's jump right into the top 10 best sneaker releases of 2020. Starting off at number 10, we've got the Travis Scott Nike SB Dunk Low. So last year in 2019, Travis Scott pretty much dominated the sneaker headlines. Every sneaker he released, and he released a lot, was pretty much a banger. This year, however, Travis Scott seemed to be focusing on other things like Fortnite, PlayStation, and really anything but music. I'm just kidding. But Travis Scott didn't release as many Nike collaborations this year as he had in the past. I'm trying to think of all the shoes he released, but I'm pretty sure he just dropped a 270 React and this Nike SB Dunk Low. Maybe I'm missing some. Let me know in the comment section down below. But even though he didn't drop as many sneaker collaborations as usual, the ones that he did drop were pretty impressive. And the most notable of those collaborations was the Travis Scott Nike SB Dunk Low. Now obviously, Nike SB Dunks and Nike Dunks in general are just very popular right now. And to be fair, I think Travis Scott does have something to do with that. Throughout most of the 2010s, Nike SBs and Nike Dunks were just not as hot as they used to be. But of course, with young hypebeasts watching Travis Scott like a hawk, when he actually wore a pair of Nike SB Dunks, they started to get hot again. Now I'm not saying at all that he was the only reason that Nike SBs regained their popularity, but he was definitely part of it. And so it totally makes sense that he would do a Nike SB Dunk Low collaboration with Nike. And apparently the inspiration behind this collaboration is a nod to his Texas and farming roots. The shoe comes with a very interesting mixed pattern upper. You've got paisley, you've got plaid, you've got suede and all sorts of different details. And I think from a non-sneakerhead point of view, a lot of people would consider this shoe ugly. And while personally I'm not in love with this shoe, I don't think it's the prettiest shoe ever, you can't deny the impact that this sneaker had on sneaker culture. While this shoe might have been overshadowed by other Nike SB Dunks that released later on in the year, it was still one of the most popular sneakers to release in the beginning of the year, and it's still one of the most coveted releases of 2020. Also, it came with literal rope laces, like ropes as laces, which was nuts. Coming in the number 9 spot, we've got the Nike Space Hippie 03. If you know anything about the Space Hippie collection, you know that there's like 4 different sneakers in this collection. Just to clarify, the reason that I picked the 03 over any of the other Nike Space Hippie sneakers is because, from what I can tell, it seemed to be the most popular and also the most interesting. However, the reasons that I put this shoe on the list are the same reasons I would have put any of the other Space Hippies on the list. And those reasons are the materials and the way that Nike went about creating this sneaker. The Nike Space Hippie collection is entirely focused on sustainability, all the way down to the packaging. 50% of the weight of the sneaker itself is made up of recycled materials. If I remember correctly, the upper is made up of recycled polyester and recycled Nike fabrics. The midsole cushioning is made up of cut up pieces of excess Nike Zoom X, so it's actually surprisingly comfortable underfoot, and the outsole is made up of Nike Grind. Nike Grind, if you didn't know, is a bunch of different ground up Nike outsoles that were either used or left over and then molded together to create a new outsole. But not only was every little aspect of the sneaker rethought to include sustainability, so was the packaging, like I mentioned before. And the packaging was probably the most polarizing part of the shoe, and the reason for that is because the shoe basically was just set inside the shipping box, and that was it. Well, I guess the shipping box was also the shoe box, so it was kind of a 2-in-1 box situation. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I know when I sold my pair on StockX, I actually had to double box my box, which I thought was kind of funny. However, even though this new packaging method wasn't really great for retaining the overall value of the sneaker if you wanted to resell, it was a really cool new way of Nike trying something different. And I've got to be honest, the Space Hippie collection also looks really good. Even though it's made up of recycled and leftover materials, Nike designed a beautiful sneaker line. So if you want to feel like a space hippie, grab some Nike Space Hippie sneakers. You won't be disappointed. At number 8, we've got got the Nike Kobe 6 Protro Grinch. So obviously in 2020 we lost an icon, Kobe Bryant. So for a lot of people it was important to be able to own something that reminded them of someone that they grew up idolizing. And while of course there was a lot of people out there profiting off of his passing, and also there's a bunch of reselling crap going on, it still didn't take away from the fact that there were a lot of Kobe fans out there, myself included, who wanted to own something just to remind themselves of Kobe Bryant. And so when Nike announced that they were re-releasing one of Kobe's most classic sneakers, the Kobe 6 Grinch, I think a lot of people were very excited about it. Now in addition to this being one of Kobe Bryant's most iconic sneakers and most iconic colorways, the shoe is also special because this 2020 retro is actually a Protro. And what Protro means, if you're not familiar, is that it's actually a performance retro, which means the internals of the shoe have been upgraded so it performs like a modern performance sneaker. So you're really getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a shoe which performs like the newest basketball sneakers, but also a shoe that looks like a classic. And for a lot of people, myself included, this shoe was an absolute grail. This is one of those shoes that we had always wanted, and when Kobe passed, it just became almost completely out of reach. So while it is still kind of frustrating that Nike only released a limited amount of these sneakers, it was still great to be able to have another chance to grab them for ourselves. I also gotta be honest, I really miss those really great Nike basketball Christmas sneakers. That was something I look forward to every single year, and we just haven't had anything like that in like a decade. And even though the shoe definitely has a very heavy Christmas aesthetic to it and might not be a shoe that you would think that you could wear all year round, because of the shoe that it is, I think everyone will totally understand if you're rocking this shoe in like May. Next up at number 7 are the Union LA Air Jordan 4s. After the insanely popular Union LA Air Jordan 1s, it was almost inevitable that they were going to do another collaboration with Jordan Brand. And to be completely honest, after seeing those first leaked images, I think people's expectations were pretty low. Whenever someone takes a classic and beloved Air Jordan sneaker and changes it in a way that people don't really understand right off the bat, they hate on it. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I didn't like this sneaker at first either. In fact, it's still not one of my personal top 10s, but I feel like it deserves to be on this list for other reasons. However, when this shoe finally released in both the Off Noir and the Guava Ice colorway, people realized that it was actually a love letter to the shoe and a love letter to its history. Union LA's focus with this collaboration was respecting the original design of the sneaker, and so everything that they changed on the shoe was done out of love for the shoe. The most obvious example was flipping out the tongue and stitching it down. That's something that the owner of Union LA did when he was growing up, and that's something that I think a lot of people in the 90s did. And while a lot of us newer generation didn't really understand it, because yes, I was alive in the 90s, but I was like 4, anyone under the age of 30 wouldn't really have the nostalgia the way that they did. And out of the two colorways, I personally prefer the Guava Ice colorway, which again, wasn't always the case. I really preferred the Off Noir colorway. Then I saw them both in person and I realized that pink shoe was really hot, and so that's the one that I ended up grabbing. So whether you like the way the sneaker turned out or not, you really can't deny the fact that it's a love letter to Jordan Brand and it really respects the history of the shoe. Coming in at number 6, we've got the women's OffWhite Air Jordan 4. This shoe is so interesting for so many different reasons, and the first is because it's women's exclusive. For years, Nike and Jordan Brand wasn't really focusing on women's sizing when it came to hype sneakers. In fact, a lot of the crazy releases didn't even come in women's sizing. But I think back in 2017 or maybe 2018, Jordan Brand actually created an entire women's division run by women. And so because of that, women are finally getting hot Air Jordan sneakers. And this collab is fire. This collab is one of the best collaborations to drop all year, hence the reason it's on the list. The women's OffWhite Air Jordan 4 is actually the very first OffWhite Air Jordan 4 sneaker to release, and as of right now, it's the only one. The shoe comes in an entirely sail or cream colored upper, and is one of the more simple Off-White sneakers, but definitely one of the ones that stands out the most. Even though they have some Off-White deconstructed hits in this shoe, they really seem to focus more on premium materials. You've still got those Off-White hits like the zip tie and the text on the medial side of the shoe, but it doesn't look like every other Off-White sneaker. He really branched off in a way that I think looks awesome. The Off-White 4s are a shoe that I still don't have in my collection and I really want to pick up. Next up at number 5, we've got the Nike SB Dunk Low Ben & Jerry's Chunky Dunky. If you didn't think 2020 was the year of the Nike Dunk in the first half of the year, then you definitely did after the Ben & Jerry's Chunky Dunkies drop. This outlandish Nike SB Dunk really solidified the fact that Nike SB Dunks and Dunks in general are back, and they're back with a vengeance. I think it's fair to say that this was a pretty unexpected collaboration. I mean, you don't usually think of Ben & Jerry's when you think of Nike and Nike athletes. The shoe comes with furry cow paneling on the upper, as well as blue and green leather panels, which I believe symbolize the grass and the sky like on Ben & Jerry's cans. Did I just call them cans? You've also got a rainbow sock liner and a bright yellow Nike swoosh. And if that wasn't enough, the friends and family versions of these shoes came in makeshift ice cream containers. The whole collaboration was just completely out of the box and also very limited. So while I think it's very reasonable to say that this shoe is very difficult to pull off and wear, it's a collaboration that people love because of how crazy it is, because it's on a Nike SB Dunk, and also because it's dope. I don't know why. I don't know what about it draws me to that shoe. It's not something I could ever really see myself wearing, but I want it. Maybe it's the hype, maybe it's the craziness of the sneaker, maybe it's because I love Ben & Jerry's. I don't know what it is, but I want this shoe. And if I had done a top 10 collaboration sneakers of the year, this one would be in the top 3, no question. At number 4, we've got the OffWhite Air Jordan 5s. Throughout the year, this shoe released in 2 different colorways. The first colorway to drop, which happened around All-Star Weekend, was a shoe that looked very similar to the black metallic 5s. Then, about 2 months ago, we had the sale colorway of the shoe drop, which was pretty similar to the fire red 5s. Now, unlike the OffWhite 4s, which we just talked about, which focus more on premium materials, the OffWhite 5s really focused on that deconstructed look and punching holes through the upper for some reason. The OffWhite Air Jordan 5 was a very different take on the classic Air Jordan 5 sneaker. Virgil decided to remove a lot of the padding on the upper, so it was a much thinner shoe, and he also changed out all the suede and leather on the upper for more of a plastic mesh material. And seriously, he also added a bunch of punch outs, which I don't love personally, but I don't think they take away enough from the shoe to make me not love this sneaker overall. I love the OffWhite Air Jordan 5s for a lot of different reasons. 1, because they look really solid. 2, because they're such a different take on the Air Jordan 5. And 3, because I think they're the most comfortable Air Jordan 5s I've ever worn. Now I know that's weird to say, and I know some people will disagree with me on that, but if you go down a half size in this shoe, it fits like a glove. It fits like a sock shoe. It's incredible. The standard Air Jordan 5s, which don't get me wrong, I still love that shoe, just feels so much bulkier than this shoe. They feel like they have so much extra weight that you just don't need. The OffWhite 5s, on the other hand, because they're not a performance-first basketball sneaker, really go for a much more airy, light, and flexible upper, and I think it just feels better on foot. And of course, aesthetically, I still love the way that they look. I love the fact that he based the colorways on classic Air Jordan 5 colorways. It's a great looking sneaker all around. It's incredibly comfortable, and it's one that if you haven't picked up yet, I say pick it up now before the price really skyrockets next year. At number 3, we've got the most polarizing shoe on the list, the Adidas Yeezy Foam Runner. In my opinion, this shoe is the epitome of you won't love it unless you try it, and once you try it, you're never gonna not love it. The Adidas Yeezy Foam Runner is the most insane looking sneaker that's released in the last year and probably the last 5 years. This shoe looks like what the bones inside of Teletubby's foot looks like. This shoe looks like it was grown in an alien lab. This shoe looks like it was made of algae in Wyoming. Which it actually was. The Adidas Yeezy Runner is so much more than just an ugly sneaker, because yes, I totally understand, it's an ugly sneaker, and the only reason you would like the way that it looks is because you like the way that people stare at you when you're wearing it, which I hate to admit it, but is one of the reasons that I wear that shoe. No, the Foam Runner is not conventionally pretty, and I don't think anyone will ever call it a pretty shoe, but it's incredibly comfortable. It's made of algae, literally algae, mixed with EVA foam that was made in the United States, and it's like one of the most comfortable and durable sneakers I've ever worn, and it's foam. It's one-piece molded foam, and it's insanely soft and insanely durable. I just don't get it. My reaction to trying on the Foam Runner for the first time was the same reaction I had when I tried on Boost for the first time. It's such an incredibly cushioned and comfortable experience underfoot, even though there's like a thin layer of one material. Not only that, but I've worn this shoe for like 100 out of the last 365 days, and it's barely showing any signs of wear, and if you get something on it, you just hose it off. I kind of hate to say it because I like so many other shoes more, but I feel like this kind of shoe is the future of footwear. Maybe not hypebeast footwear, but I think general all-purpose footwear. I mean, we've seen the same sort of thing with Crocs, but this is just a sort of more futuristic version of that. So even if you hate the Adidas Yeezy Foam Runner because you think it's insanely ugly, that's fine. I totally get that, but if you have the chance to buy one for retail, because retail is only $75, which is probably the cheapest shoe on the list, you definitely need to grab one just to experience how it feels on your foot. And I really hope that Kanye and Adidas continue to push this silhouette because it's one of the most exciting and futuristic silhouettes I've ever seen. Coming in at number 2 are the Dior Air Jordan 1s. So technically, 2 different versions of this shoe released. There was a high top version and a low top version, but they were both essentially the same sneaker except with the top cut off of one of them. So because of that, I'm gonna put them both on the list even though they were technically different SKUs. That said, I think there's no denying the cultural impact that the Dior Air Jordan 1s had on sneaker culture and just culture as a whole. This shoe released for a retail price of $2,000 and there were rumored to be only around 8,000 pairs available. Not only that, but they were only released through Dior, so either you spent a lot of money at Dior in the past and they gave you access to a pair, or you won a raffle, and I think 5 million people entered the raffle, which is unheard of. But what's even crazier is how much these shoes were reselling for around the time of release. The high top version was selling for between $15,000 to $20,000. It's just an insane markup. The only other sneaker that I can think of that sold for that much when it released were the Nike mags that auto-laced back in 2016. However, those were going for more like $60,000. But this shoe is groundbreaking for other reasons as well. First off, because Jordan Brand was collaborating with a brand that was purely high fashion focused. Sure, Jordan Brand has collaborated with high-end brands in the past, but nothing as high-end or high fashion as Dior. In addition to that, the shoe was also made of incredibly high quality leather materials and handmade in Italy. So even though it looked like a standard Air Jordan 1, it was anything but. But speaking of looks, the colorway of this shoe wasn't that exciting. It was a gray and white Air Jordan 1 with a Nike swoosh that was slightly oversized with the Dior logo embroidered into it and an icy outsole. Now to be fair, I do like the way that this sneaker looks, but nowhere near $20,000 much. But if the colorway being boring is the reason that this shoe isn't on someone's top 10 list of 2020, they're completely missing the point. The reason that I put this shoe so high up on my list is because this sneaker is the literal embodiment of high-end fashion merging with athletic fashion. It's just two huge worlds combining and smashing into each other into one insane collaboration that was one of the most hyped up sneakers of the last decade. Obviously in 2021 we're gonna have some insane sneaker collaborations, but I don't think any are gonna be as memorable as the Dior Air Jordan 1s. Finally, rounding off the list at number 1, we've got the New Balance 992 Joe Freshgoods No Emotions Are Emotions. Now I know the shoe being number 1 on the list might be a surprise to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, this is my list and this is my favorite sneaker of the entire year. I think this sneaker is the embodiment of a perfect collaboration. It takes a brand, New Balance, and a designer, Joe Freshgoods, and combines them both in a way that creates not only an incredible sneaker, but also lifts both brands up. There's no denying the fact that 2020 has been an incredible year for New Balance, and I think this particular collaboration was one of the reasons for that. In fact, for me, this is one of my favorite New Balance sneakers of all time, and is one of the reasons I fell so deeply in love with New Balance this year. The New Balance 992 is an incredible silhouette. It looks incredible, it feels incredible on foot, and it's made of really great materials. But Joe Freshgoods' collaboration on this sneaker just takes this shoe to another level. The concept behind this collaboration was the anatomy of a heart, and it's so obvious that that's what the inspiration was when you really look at the sneaker. The shoe is covered in tonal red suedes and meshes and leathers, and when you see this colorway on the silhouette, it literally looks like the inside of a heart because all those little holes look like ventricles or whatever they're called. But when you pair this colorway with the blue laces that were included inside the box, it just pops. It's one of the hottest looks I've seen all year. In my opinion, this is the sleeper shoe of 2020. Yes, it's popular, but it's not so popular that everyone and their mom knows about it like the Dior collaboration is. The Joe Freshgoods New Balance 992 No Emotions Are Emotions is the epitome of an excellent collaboration, a great looking sneaker that's also incredibly comfortable, and it's just my favorite sneaker of the year. But it's because of this silhouette and this collaboration that I love New Balance so much, and I literally cannot wait to see what they do in 2021. But with that, we wrap up my top 10 best sneaker releases of 2020. Now I would love to know your thoughts on this list and what your top 10 list is, so make sure to let me know in the comment section down below. But as always, thank you so much for watching, Happy New Year, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.